The night was heavy with silence when Ayan Malik, a 12-year-old boy with sharp eyes and a restless mind, overheard something he wasn't supposed to. He was the son of Salma, the maid who had worked in the grand mansion of billionaire Zamir Khan for over 15 years. Ayan was known to be curious, too curious, some would say, and it was this very trait that often got him into trouble. But tonight, his curiosity would lead him to a choice so dangerous it could shatter lives forever. As he pressed his small ear against the polished wooden door of the study, he heard a single line, a line that would haunt him. By tomorrow, his empire will collapse, and he won't even know who betrayed him. Ayan froze. His heart pounded. Who was betraying Mr. Khan? And why? He knew that if he kept quiet, nothing in his world would change. He would still be the maid's son, invisible to the powerful. But if he spoke, he could save the man who had unknowingly fed him, sheltered him, and sometimes even smiled at him. The boy's throat went dry. Should he risk everything, knowing that no one might believe him? Or should he stay silent, protecting his mother's fragile position in the mansion? If he spoke the truth, would it save the billionaire or destroy his own family forever? 3 questions burned in his young mind. Who was the betrayer? Would anyone believe a maid's child? And was he brave enough to act before it was too late? The sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of the Khan mansion the next morning, casting golden light over marble floors so polished they gleamed like mirrors. The staff moved quietly, their footsteps echoing faintly through the grand halls. Maids hurried with silver trays, guards checked their positions, and the chef barked orders from the kitchen. Yet, despite the routine, there was an uneasy tension in the air, a stiffness that Ayan could sense but not name. He sat near the servants' quarters, pretending to tie his worn-out shoelaces, while his eyes darted toward the study, the very room where he had overheard the sinister whisper the night before. His small chest tightened with the weight of the secret. He wanted to run to his mother, Salma, but fear clamped his lips shut. She would scold him for eavesdropping and warn him never to interfere with the matters of the rich. Yet how could he ignore it? The line replayed in his mind again and again. By tomorrow, his empire will collapse. Meanwhile, in the luxurious dining hall, Zamir Khan sat at the head of the long mahogany table, sipping his black coffee. He was a man in his 50s, his hair graying at the edges, his face lined not by weakness but by years of commanding respect in boardrooms and markets. He had built his empire from scratch, earning both admiration and envy. But today, beneath his calm exterior, there was a heaviness in his eyes, a man unaware that betrayal was creeping closer. "Sir, the board meeting is scheduled for 3 o'clock, his secretary reminded him, placing a neat folder beside his cup. Good, Zamir said with a nod, though his mind seemed distracted. Across the room, Ayan's gaze fell on him. He saw not just a billionaire, but a man alone in his wealth. Ayan remembered the times when Zamir had quietly paid for the school fees of the staff's children, including his own. He remembered how the man had once knelt to fix Ayan's broken toy car, surprising everyone. And now, someone wanted to destroy him. The boy's hands clenched into fists. He had to do something. Later that afternoon, while his mother polished the crystal vases in the hallway, Ayan tugged at her sleeve. "Ammi," he whispered urgently, "I heard something last night." "Something bad." Salma frowned, still focused on her work. "What is it now, Ayan?" "You and your stories." "No, it's real," Ayan insisted, his eyes wide with fear. "Someone said Mr. Khan's empire will collapse by tomorrow. Someone inside this house is planning something." Salma stiffened, her hands freezing mid-polish. "Ayan. Stop this nonsense. Do you want me to lose this job? Do you know what happens when poor people meddle in the affairs of the rich? We get crushed." "But Ammi." "No." Her voice was sharp now, though her eyes betrayed worry. "Forget whatever you think you heard. Promise me you'll stay out of it." Ayan's lips quivered, but he nodded reluctantly. Inside, however, the fire only grew stronger. If his mother wouldn't help, he would act alone. The day stretched on. In the mansion, preparations for the evening's gathering began. Important guests were expected, business partners, old friends, and rivals masked as well-wishers. The chandeliers were polished until they sparkled, servants moved like shadows, and an air of importance hung over every corner. Ayan wandered through the corridors, silent and observant. His sharp ears caught fragments of conversations, whispers exchanged in corners. But nothing more about betrayal. Until he spotted Mr. Farouk, Zamir's most trusted advisor, slipping into the study with a leather briefcase. Ayan's stomach tightened. Farouk was always composed, always by Mr. Khan's side. Yet something about his hurried movements looked wrong today. Curiosity gnawed at Ayan. Quiet as a cat, he tiptoed closer, pressing himself against the wall near the half-closed door. He held his breath as voices drifted out. Farouk's voice, low, urgent, "Everything is ready. Once the documents are signed tonight, control shifts completely. He won't even know what hit him." Another voice, unfamiliar but cold, replied, "Good. By the time he realizes, his empire will belong to us." Ayan's small hands shook. His suspicion was true. Farouk, the man Zamir trusted most, was the betrayer. That evening, the mansion glowed with wealth. Cars pulled into the driveway, guests in designer suits and shimmering dresses stepped out, laughter and greetings filling the grand hall. Zamir Khan moved among them with practiced charm, shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries, masking the storm that unknowingly brewed beneath his very roof. Hidden in the shadows, Ayan watched Farouk closely. The man smiled, whispered into ears, handed over papers. Every movement screamed danger to the boy. Finally, he could no longer hold his silence. He darted into the dining hall, his small voice trembling but loud enough to turn heads. "Mr. Khan," he cried. "Please listen. Don't sign anything tonight. They're trying to take everything from you." The room froze. Gasps echoed. Dozens of eyes turned toward the boy, the maid's son, standing in the middle of chandeliers and silk gowns. Zamir's brow furrowed, confusion flashing across his face. "What nonsense is this?" Farouk stepped forward smoothly, his expression calm but his eyes sharp with warning. "Sir, this child is mistaken. He doesn't know what he's saying. Salma's boy is always causing trouble." But Ayan's voice broke through again, desperate and raw. "I heard it myself. Last night in the study, Farouk said your empire will collapse, that you won't know who betrayed you. Please believe me." A deadly silence filled the room. Zamir's hand froze above the stack of papers. His eyes darted between the loyal advisor he had trusted for decades and the trembling child of his maid. For the first time in years, doubt crept into his heart. Could it be true? Was his empire about to be stolen from within? And should he trust the trembling voice of a child over the polished loyalty of a man he had built his fortune beside? The air in the mansion's grand hall was suffocating with silence. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, some whispering, others waiting to see what the powerful Zamir Khan would do. Ayan stood trembling in the middle of it all, his small fists clenched, his eyes locked on Zamir as if pleading with him to believe. Zamir's gaze remained fixed on Farouk, who had suddenly lost his practiced calm. For over 20 years, Farouk had been his right hand, the man who had advised him, shielded him, and even shared meals with him. Could all of that have been a lie? The buzzing phone still rested on the table, its treacherous message glowing like fire. Zamir picked it up slowly, reading it once, then again, his jaw tightening. The room seemed to shrink around him. He raised his eyes, his voice low but cutting. "Farouk, what is this?" Farouk's lips parted, searching for words, but none came. His silence was louder than any confession. Gasps rippled through the hall. Some guests stepped back, others whispered in shock. Ayan swallowed hard. He had done it, he had forced the truth into the light. But he also knew the danger had only just begun. The chandelier's glow flickered above them as Zamir stood tall, his powerful voice filling the hall. "Everyone here has witnessed it. Betrayal, inside my own house." He slammed the phone on the table, the sound echoing like thunder. "The man I trusted most plotted against me." Farouk's eyes darted wildly, desperate for an escape. "Sir, it's a misunderstanding. That message, it's not what it looks like." "Enough!" Zamir roared, his hand cutting through the air. Guards rushed forward, seizing Farouk by the arms. But even as they dragged him back, Farouk's eyes narrowed, his voice turning sharp and venomous. You think you've won, Khan? You think a child's foolish words can save you? The documents are already in motion. By tomorrow morning, your empire will crumble whether I am here or not. The room trembled with his threat. Guests recoiled, some frightened, others curious to see how far this war would go. Zamir's chest heaved, but his eyes flicked toward Ayan, the maid's boy who had dared to speak truth when no one else did. Bring this man to the study, Zamir ordered coldly. We end this tonight. The guards dragged Farouk away, his protests fading into the hall. Zamir turned back, his face still stormy, then fixed his gaze on the boy. Ayan. The boy froze. His mother, Salma, rushed forward, pulling Ayan close as if to shield him. Sir, forgive him, she pleaded, her voice trembling. He's just a child. He doesn't know what he says. Please don't punish him. But Zamir's voice softened in a way no one expected. No, Salma. He is the only one who had the courage to speak. Tonight, your son may have saved everything I built. Salma blinked, stunned. Ayan's chest swelled, though fear still clouded his young eyes. Later, inside the study, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Heavy curtains blocked the moonlight, the polished desk now a battlefield of contracts, phones, and half-burned secrets. Farouk sat chained to a chair, his expression defiant despite the sweat on his brow. Zamir paced the room, his mind racing. Tell me, Farouk. How deep does this betrayal run? Who else is involved? Farouk smirked, a cruel smile stretching his face. Do you think it's just me? Do you think your empire can be destroyed by one man? No, Zamir. You've made enemies in every corner. Business rivals, partners, even those you called friends. They all want your fall. And tonight was only the beginning. Zamir's fists tightened. He wanted answers, but the man's words only spun webs of confusion. From the corner, Ayan blurted out, his small voice cutting through the tension, check the documents. He said something about signing them. Maybe they're false, maybe they're a trap. Zamir stopped, staring at the boy again. Something stirred inside him, this child saw what most adults missed. Quickly, he snatched the stack of contracts Farouk had brought earlier. His eyes scanned the fine print, the endless paragraphs written in legal jargon. And there it was, a single line buried deep in the text, one that transferred controlling shares of his company to a shell corporation. If he had signed it in front of the guests tonight, everything would have been lost. A cold shiver ran through him. This one line, Zamir whispered, his voice tight. This one line would have ruined me. Ayan's eyes widened. That's what I meant, sir. That's what I heard. Zamir looked at him with newfound respect, then back at Farouk, who now smiled with twisted satisfaction. You may have escaped tonight, Farouk hissed, but tomorrow the Rael storm begins. Do you think you can stop what's already in motion? The next morning, the newspapers screamed with shocking headlines. Khan Industries faces massive investigation. Shares drop overnight as rumors spread. Who betrayed billionaire Zamir Khan? Zamir sat in his private office, his jaw tight, the papers scattered across his desk. His empire was trembling, not yet collapsed, but on the edge. Farouk's words echoed in his mind, you've made enemies in every corner. And he knew it was true. Competitors he had defeated years ago, partners who envied his success, even people inside his boardroom who smiled in his presence but stabbed him in the back, all had reasons to join this silent conspiracy. But what haunted him most was a question: how far did the betrayal reach? He looked across the office, where Ayan sat nervously, fidgeting with his small hands. You, Zamir said, his tone softer than usual. You saw what others did not. You saved me once. Now tell me, Ayan, are you ready to help me uncover the rest? The boy's eyes widened. Me? But I'm just a child. No one listens to me. Zamir leaned forward, his eyes piercing. That is exactly why you are useful. No one notices you. No one suspects you. Sometimes, the smallest eyes see the biggest truths. Ayan's throat went dry. His heart raced at the thought of stepping into a world far bigger and darker than he had ever imagined. Yet something inside him, a mix of fear and courage, whispered that this was his moment. He nodded slowly. "I'll help." Zamir's lips curved into a faint, approving smile. "Good. Because the game has only begun. And if we fail, everything will burn." That evening, while the mansion grew quiet, Ayan followed Zamir into the shadows of the city, into meetings, secret alleys, and hidden truths. Each step pulled him deeper into a world of power, betrayal, and danger. And though he was only a maid's son, his sharp eyes and unshakable courage were about to change not just one man's fate but an empire's destiny. But in the shadows, unseen, another figure was already watching them, waiting for the right moment to strike. Someone far more dangerous than Farouk. The city lights glittered outside like scattered diamonds as Zamir Khan sat in the backseat of his sleek black car. Beside him sat Ayan, his small frame lost in the plush leather seat, his eyes wide with both fear and excitement. The boy had never been this far into the world of power and danger, yet here he was, pulled into it by a single overheard line. "Sir," Ayan whispered, his voice shaky but determined, "what if they try again? What if there are more lines like that hidden in other papers?" Zamir's gaze remained fixed on the city beyond the glass. His voice was low, heavy with thought. "There will be. Men like Farouk never act alone. What we uncovered was only one trap. The rest are waiting to be found." Ayan clutched the edge of his seat. He wanted to ask more, but something in Zamir's face told him this was not the time. Instead, he looked out the window, watching tall towers rush past, their glass walls reflecting power and secrets. He wondered if inside those glowing buildings sat more men like Farouk, smiling, plotting, waiting. Inside the mansion that night, Salma paced back and forth. Her son had not returned with the evening servants, and her heart raced with worry. When she finally saw him step in, walking beside Zamir himself, her eyes widened in disbelief. "Ayan," she cried, rushing forward. "Where have you been? Do you know how worried I was?" But before she could pull him away, Zamir raised a hand. His voice was calm, yet commanding. "Salma, your son is no longer just a boy in this house. He has proven himself." Salma froze. "Proven?" "Sir, he is just a child." "A child who saved me," Zamir interrupted firmly. "Do not silence his courage. Sometimes, it is the smallest among us who see what the powerful overlook." Ayan's eyes glistened with pride, though fear still lingered. Salma, torn between relief and dread, held her son close. She knew her boy's life had changed forever, and not necessarily for the better. The next morning brought no peace. The front pages screamed louder than ever. Khan's empire on the brink. Board members question his leadership. Secret partners step forward to demand answers. In the boardroom, a storm brewed. Zamir sat at the head of the long glass table, his executives around him, their faces tense. Some looked worried, others opportunistic. At the far end, one man in particular leaned back with a smirk that sent shivers down Zamir's spine. "Rafiq Siddiqui, an old rival, sharp as a knife and twice as dangerous." "Zamir," Rafiq drawled, his voice dripping with false sympathy, "your loyal advisor has betrayed you." "Tragic. But perhaps it is a sign. A sign that you no longer have control." Murmurs rippled through the room. Several board members nodded faintly, their eyes avoiding Zamir's. The empire he had built brick by brick was wobbling beneath him. But Zamir's voice cut through the noise, strong and unyielding. "Control is not lost. Betrayal has been exposed, and those responsible will answer. I will not allow my life's work to be stolen." Rafiq's smirk deepened. "We'll see, old friend. We'll see." Hidden behind the glass door, Ayan listened, his young heart pounding. He saw the looks in those men's eyes, not loyalty, but hunger. Hunger for power. And then he noticed something no one else did, a small folded paper slipping from Rafiq's pocket as he stood to leave. It fluttered onto the carpet, unseen by the others. Ayan's eyes narrowed. Slowly, when no one was watching, he darted forward, snatched the paper, and tucked it into his shirt. Later, in the quiet of the servants' quarters, Ayan unfolded the paper. His eyes scanned the messy handwriting, and his chest tightened. It was a list: names of companies, amounts of money, secret deals. At the bottom, one chilling sentence. Phase 2 begins once Khan is weakened publicly. His small hands trembled. This was bigger than he thought. Farouk had been only a pawn. The real mastermind was someone else, and Rafiq was right in the middle of it. But before he could show it to Zamir, a shadow loomed behind him. "What do you have there, boy?" Ayan spun around, his heart leaping to his throat. It was Rafiq himself, standing in the doorway, his cold eyes fixed on the paper. Ayan tried to hide it behind his back, but Rafiq stepped closer, his smile terrifying. "So, the maid's child thinks he's clever. Do you know what happens to rats who sniff where they shouldn't?" His hand reached out, fast as lightning, but Ayan slipped under his arm and bolted through the corridor, his feet pounding against the marble floor. Rafiq's voice echoed after him, dark and furious. "You can't hide forever, boy. You've just signed your own death." Ayan's breath came in ragged gasps as he burst into Zamir's office, clutching the paper like a lifeline. "Sir! It's Rafiq. He's behind it too," he shouted. Zamir's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing as he snatched the paper and read. The more he read, the colder his face became. "This," Zamir whispered. "This is the proof. Phase 2. But before he could finish, the lights in the office flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed the room. A chill spread through the air, followed by the heavy sound of footsteps approaching. The door creaked open slowly. And in the dim light of the hallway stood Rafiq, flanked by two tall men in black suits, their eyes empty, their movements sharp. Well, Rafiq said softly, stepping inside. "Looks like the game ends tonight. You should have listened to me, Zamir. You should have stepped aside." Zamir rose from his chair, his jaw hard. Ayan clung to his sleeve, his heart hammering. The boy had wanted to save the billionaire, but now, standing face to face with the enemy in the shadows, he wondered. The office was cloaked in shadows, the faint glow of the city lights barely cutting through the tall glass windows. Ayan's small fingers dug into Zamir's sleeve as Rafiq entered with his two silent enforcers. Their polished shoes clicked against the marble floor, each step echoing like a countdown to disaster. Zamir stood tall, refusing to show fear, though his heart thudded heavily in his chest. "Rafiq," he said, his voice calm but sharp, "breaking into my office in the dead of night? That tells me everything. You've already lost." Rafiq's laugh was low, mocking. "Lost? No, Zamir. I've already won. By tomorrow, the markets will crash against you, your board will vote you out, and your empire will belong to me. You think this child's little stunt changes anything? No one will believe him. He's a servant's son, he doesn't even exist in our world." Ayan's jaw tightened. His small voice rose, trembling but brave. "I exist. And I saw what you wrote. I saw your list." Rafiq's smirk twisted into a sneer. He leaned closer, his face inches from Ayan's, his tone icy. "And I can make sure you never speak again." The boy's breath caught. He wanted to step back, to hide, but Zamir's steady hand rested on his shoulder. The billionaire's voice was firm. "You will not touch him, Rafiq. You want me? Then face me, not a child." The tension crackled like fire. Suddenly, one of the enforcers moved, grabbing Ayan by the arm. The boy cried out, struggling as the man's iron grip held him. "Let him go!" Zamir barked, his fists clenching. But Rafiq only chuckled. "Oh no, Zamir. This boy is leverage. You care about him, don't you? Funny, isn't it, after all these years of climbing over the poor, you suddenly protect one? How noble. But nobility won't save your empire." He gestured toward the desk, where the incriminating paper lay. "Hand that over. Now." Zamir's mind raced. If he gave up the paper, Rafiq would win. If he refused, the boy's life was at risk. His empire, his power, his pride, all of it balanced on one fragile choice. Ayan's wide eyes locked on him. For the first time, Zamir saw not just fear but trust, the trust of a child who believed in him. And something in his chest shifted. "No," Zamir said firmly, his voice like steel. "You will not take this empire. And you will not harm this boy." He pressed a hidden button beneath his desk. Within seconds, the office door burst open, and armed security stormed in. Rafiq's eyes widened in shock as men surrounded him and his enforcers, guns drawn. "You didn't think I'd be foolish enough to face you unprepared, did you?" Zamir's lips curled in a grim smile. Rafiq's smirk faded, but even as guards seized him, his voice was venomous. "You think this ends with me? I am only one hand of the machine. Cut me down, and 10 more will rise. Mark my words, Zamir, this is far from over." The following morning, the city buzzed with news. Rafiq Siddiqui arrested after midnight confrontation. Maid's son key witness in Billionaire betrayal. Empire still under siege as hidden conspiracy unfolds. Reporters swarmed the mansion gates, cameras flashing, questions shouted. But inside, the mood was far from victorious. Zamir sat in his private lounge, staring into his untouched cup of tea. Ayan sat opposite him, nervous but curious. "Sir," Ayan finally asked, "why did he say it's not over? What did he mean?" Zamir sighed, leaning back. "Because he spoke the truth. Rafiq was not acting alone. There are others, powerful men, faceless corporations, hidden partners. They want not just my empire, but control of everything I built. And they will not stop until I am ruined." Ayan's stomach knotted. He thought of his mother, of the quiet life they once had before all of this began. But then he thought of the paper, the line he had spotted, the truth he had dared to speak when no one else did. "I'll help again," he whispered. "If there are more secrets, I'll find them." Zamir looked at him, surprised. "Why? You could stay silent, stay safe." Ayan's small fists clenched. "Because if people like Rafiq win, people like us, people like my mother, will always suffer. And because you believed me when no one else did." For the first time in days, Zamir's lips curved into a faint, weary smile. "Very well, Ayan. Then we fight together." But even as they spoke, a new shadow moved across the city. In a dimly lit office on the top floor of another skyscraper, a group of men sat around a long table. Their faces were stern, their voices cold. "So," one of them said, tapping his fingers against the polished wood. "Rafiq failed." Another leaned forward. "No matter. Phase 3 begins now. And if Khan thinks a child can save him, then the child must be silenced." The room fell into silence, heavy with menace. Outside, lightning flashed against the night sky, as if the heavens themselves warned of the storm to come. And far away, in the Khan mansion, Ayan shivered suddenly, as though he could feel unseen eyes already watching him. The mansion was quiet that night, but not with peace. It was the silence of fear, the silence that comes when danger breathes too close. Ayan lay awake on his narrow bed in the servants' quarters, his eyes wide in the dark. Every creak of the wooden beams, every whisper of the wind through the curtains, made his heart pound. He thought of Rafiq's words. "Cut me down, and 10 more will rise." And somewhere in the shadows of the city, those 10 were already moving. The next morning, Salma found her son staring blankly at the breakfast plate she had set before him. "Ayan," she said gently, brushing his messy hair, "why are you not eating? You've changed so much these past days. You're only 12. Your only worry should be school, not," her voice faltered. "Not billionaires and betrayals." Ayan looked up at her, his eyes too old for his age. "Ammi, if I hadn't spoken, Mr. Khan would have lost everything. And now others are coming. They don't care if I'm just a boy. They want me gone." Salma's breath caught. She wanted to tell him he was imagining things, that all of this would blow over. But deep down, she knew he was right. She had seen the cars lingering too long outside the mansion gates, the strange men asking questions in the market. Danger was circling, and her son was in its center. Just then, the door opened, and Zamir entered. He looked tired, his face lined with sleeplessness, but his eyes were still sharp.
"Salma," he said quietly, "Ayan can no longer stay in the open.
They will come for him."
Salma stood protectively in front of her boy.
"Then send him away, sir. Send him somewhere safe, far from all this." But Zamir shook his head.
"No.
If I send him away, they will find him. The only safety now is here, under my watch.
And more than that, I need him.
His eyes see what others miss.
And we are running out of time." Ayan's heart raced.
He had wanted to help, but now, the cost of that choice was becoming terrifyingly clear. Later that day, the mansion gates trembled under the weight of reporters, their questions rising like a storm.
"Mr. Khan, is it true your empire is collapsing? Did your advisor betray you because of corruption? Who is the boy who exposed the conspiracy?" Guards held them back, but the chaos spread like fire. Zamir ignored them, striding into his car with Ayan beside him. The boy's small frame was hidden beneath a large coat, his cap pulled low. Their destination, the central branch of Khan Industries. Inside the skyscraper, tension rippled through the halls. Employees whispered, board members moved in and out of offices, and rumors flew faster than facts. When Zamir entered the top-floor conference room, silence fell like a curtain. At the long table sat the board. Some faces loyal. Others hungry. And among them one new figure. A woman in a sharp gray suit, her eyes cold as steel. "Gentlemen," she said smoothly, her voice commanding, "I am Samira Qureshi, legal representative for the consortium now holding nearly 40% of Khan Industries shares." Zamir's stomach dropped. 40%? That much power in one hand? Samira smiled faintly. "We are here to negotiate, or to take what will soon be ours." Ayan, seated quietly at the back, felt his skin prickle. Something about the woman's confidence, her precise words, told him she was not just a lawyer. She was the mastermind behind Phase 3. That night, back in the mansion, Zamir sat with Ayan in the study. Papers littered the desk, numbers and contracts forming a battlefield on the page. "They've already bought their way into my empire," Zamir muttered, frustration burning in his tone. "Piece by piece, they will own everything. And Samira, she is the real danger." Ayan leaned forward, his small hands gripping the edge of the desk. "Then we fight back. We find what they're hiding. There must be something, sir, something they don't want anyone to see." Zamir looked at him, almost startled. A faint smile touched his lips. "You sound like a soldier, Ayan. But you're right. If they have secrets, we must uncover them before they bury us." At that moment, a guard rushed into the room, breathless. "Sir! There's been a breach at the gate." Zamir shot to his feet. "Who?" The guard hesitated. They didn't say. But they asked only for one thing." "What?" The guard's voice dropped, grim. "The boy." Panic swept the mansion. Salma clutched Ayan tightly, her face pale with terror. Guards secured doors, weapons drawn, but fear still clawed at the air. Ayan's heart pounded. They were coming for him. Not Zamir, not the Empire, him. Through the upstairs window, he saw dark vehicles parked just beyond the gate, their headlights glowing like predators' eyes. "Sir," whispered Ayan, trembling, "what if they get in? What if they take me?" Zamir knelt in front of him, his voice firm, his eyes blazing with a fire Ayan had never seen. "They will not take you, Ayan. Because you are no longer just the maid's son. You are the key to saving us all. And I will protect you with my life." The boy swallowed hard. For the first time, he realized he was not just part of the story. He was the story. But even as Zamir spoke, shadows moved closer outside the gates. And from one of the dark vehicles, Samira Qureshi herself stepped out, her gray suit gleaming under the headlights, her cold smile promising destruction. She had come not to bargain. She had come to take.
The mansion shook with tension as the headlights of Samira Qureshi's cars glared through the gates. Armed men stepped out, their movements precise, their silence terrifying. The guards inside the compound tightened their grip on weapons, but fear seeped through even the bravest hearts. In the study upstairs, Ayan clung to his mother's hand. His body trembled, but his mind refused to bend. He had been afraid before, but tonight was different. Tonight, he knew that everything, the empire, the future, even his mother's safety, rested on what he would do. Zamir Khan stood tall beside them, his eyes locked on the scene below.
Samira doesn't want to just take my company, he said grimly.
She wants to destroy the one person who exposed her lies. He turned to Ayan.
She wants you.
Ayan's throat went dry, but he forced himself to whisper, then let's make sure she never wins. Down at the gates, Samira stepped forward, her heels clicking on the gravel.
She didn't shout. She didn't threaten.
Her calm voice carried like a blade. Zamir Khan, she called out, you have lost. Open the gates, hand over the boy, and I may spare the ruins of your empire.
Resist, and you will lose more than wealth, you will lose blood. Her men raised their weapons, ready to storm. But Zamir, instead of panicking, leaned toward Ayan. This is your moment. You see the things others don't. Do you notice anything, boy? Anything at all?
Ayan's eyes darted across the scene, searching. The cars, the men, the gates. Then he saw it, something small, almost invisible.
On the side of one of Samira's black SUVs was a logo, quickly painted over but not completely hidden.
His heart skipped. Sir, he whispered urgently, that car, it's registered to your own company.
She's using your stolen fleet. If we prove this, the law will be on our side. They'll know she's operating illegally. Zamir's eyes widened. Are you certain?
Yes, Ayan said firmly. It's the line they forgot to erase. Suddenly, Zamir's voice thundered through a loudspeaker.
Samira Qureshi.
You claim to represent law and order, but you stand outside my home with stolen property and armed criminals.
Every camera here sees it.
Every word is recorded. One more step, and the whole nation will know who you really are. For the first time, Samira's cold mask cracked. She glanced at the SUV, her eyes narrowing. Reporters, who had been lingering in the distance, now rushed forward with cameras flashing.
The evidence was out in the open.
Her men hesitated.
Without orders, without certainty, their strength began to crumble.
Samira's voice turned sharp, desperate.
Do not listen to him. Move forward.
But it was too late.
Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with every second.
Her perfect plan was unraveling because a 12-year-old child had noticed a single forgotten detail.
Chaos erupted.
Some of Samira's men dropped their weapons, unwilling to fight under the cameras. Others tried to flee, but the police vehicles blocked their escape. In the confusion, Samira herself was cornered, her icy expression replaced by fury. You think this changes anything? She hissed at Zamir as officers cuffed her wrists.
For every one of me you stop, another will rise. You can't protect him forever.
Zamir's reply was steady, unshaken.
Maybe not forever.
But tonight, he protected us all. And his eyes turned toward Ayan, who stood trembling but proud, his small figure glowing in the headlights as though fate itself had chosen him. The next morning, the world changed. News outlets across the country broadcasted the story of how a billionaire nearly lost everything to betrayal and how the maid's young son had exposed the scheme that saved it all. Pictures of Ayan filled the screens, a shy boy with determined eyes, standing beside Zamir Khan like an equal. In the mansion, Salma wept silently, kissing her son's forehead. I tried to keep you small, to protect you from the cruelty of the world. But you've become greater than I ever dreamed. Ayan looked at her, his voice soft but steady.
Ami, I was afraid.
But sometimes, even children must stand tall.
Zamir entered then, placing a hand on Ayan's shoulder.
His eyes shone with respect.
From this day forward, you are not just the maid's son.
You are part of this house, part of this legacy.
You saved me from ruin, Ayan. And for that, I owe you more than I can repay. Epilogue, the moral. Months later, the empire of con industries stood stronger than ever. Corrupt figures had been exposed, the conspiracies dismantled, and new policies brought fairness and transparency. But the greatest change was invisible, it lived in the hearts of those who heard the story. People whispered about the maid's child who had seen what billionaires missed. About the boy who pointed out a single line and turned the tide of an empire. And the lesson was clear: sometimes, the smallest voice carries the greatest truth. Sometimes, the overlooked child becomes the savior. Because courage is not measured in age or wealth, it is measured in the moment you choose to stand, when standing is the hardest thing to do.